Previously on Autistic Critic. I'm only taking the main villain. There are 2 movies where I had to include 2 villains that deserve separate slots. Allison Janney does her best. I didn't need or want more screen time than what we got. Plenty of evil animals on this list get personality. I've got to move it!
Magnificent, aren't they?
I have some very interesting history related to the movie Monsters vs. Aliens. I was born in Modesto, California, the home of protagonist Susan Murphy, aka Ginormica. Oh, and Susan was also my grandma's name. Despite this movie having a hold on me way back when, Gallaxhar is a bad guy I've never really had a ton to say about. Still, this is the character that introduced me to Dwight Schrute, and he's a great fit for this role. His voice oozes with distaste, rage, mockery, and malice, and he doesn't sound anything like Dwight. To me, that's just Gallaxhar. That part where he's cloning himself but his machine cuts him off as he's monologuing is hilarious, but as a side effect, we have no idea exactly what happened to make him destroy his own planet and become a conqueror. I find it funny when he introduces Susan to himself and she tells him this isn't her first time being imprisoned by a guy with a hovering device. His response to that is great.
Wow. You really get around.
He lacks a compelling dynamic with the monsters facing him, probably because he's only after one since the Quantonium meteor hit her and made her Ginormica, and those two meet for the first time before the third act. All in all, Gallaxhar is one of those villains who works well enough for his movie.
They're animals! Animals!
Oh yeah, over to Hedge. I was born for this moment. Time to talk about... Oh. But like I said, there were instances I was going to include multiple villains from a single movie, and this is one of them. That means the Verminator will be on here, right? Right?
Prepare for a lot of stinging.
Because I restricted myself to the main villains of a movie, I banned myself from talking about the Verminator. He's my favorite of the 3 villains in this movie, but he's not the main one. I'll let you know where he would land when I get there. Allison Janney, in her second vocal performance on this list, delivers a Karen for the ages. She plays off the Verminator extremely well. Gladys Sharp is the only DreamWorks villain who brings up the Geneva Conventions, so that's how you know she means business. Nowadays, her question of, what if we have a potential pandemic on our hands, hits close to home for an obvious reason. It's so fascinating that she has a better excuse to beef with animals than Miss Grunion. While Grunion is being speciesist towards a smart dog, Gladys is a reactionary victim of RJ's raids for food to appease Vincent the bear. This whole movie from her perspective is hilarious. One minute, she's spraying her house with anti-skunk spray, and the next, an exterminator truck flies through the air and smashes through her house. She flew too close to the sun, however, since the Verminator sold her the D-Pelter Turbo, which is a contraband item, ma'am, as it is illegal in every state except Texas. She's a delicious blast of an HOA nightmare.
Can I assume that your friends call you Doc Ock?
I honestly can't believe how much I genuinely enjoy Dave the Octopus. It's always nice when a hilarious villain comes out of a movie I'm not attached to. He's effortlessly hysterical and a legit threat for the penguins to contend with. He wants to destroy the image of penguins because they were more popular than him, so that's messed up. Even then, Dave's backstory gets repetitive. We get it. Penguins upstaged him at every zoo he was transferred to. Anyway, back to positives. His scheme is so wild, yet effective at the same time, even though it's eerily reminiscent of Despicable Me 2. Those purple minions terrified me as a kid, and the mutants he turned the kidnapped penguins into were no different. I love the celebrity puns he makes with his octopus henchmen. Nicholas Cage them. Kevin, bank on! Oh, and the part where he put on the glasses because he doesn't know how to do a Zoom call, that just took me out. While I found this movie disposable since nothing came out from Madagascar afterward, I had a ton of fun with Dave.
It's over, beast!
Okay, this movie gave me childhood trauma. I would not, repeat not, show Curse of the Were-Rabbit to a kid just so they wouldn't end up like me. Therefore, I was ready to rank the Wallace and Gromit equivalent of Gaston a little lower, until I remembered I was aiming to talk about the villains more than their movies. Victor Quartermaine has a way with words, such as when he tells Gromit, "Your loyalty is moving. Sadly, you won't be." That's such a great line. I enjoyed how, instead of going back on his promise to Lady Toddington that he won't kill thoughtlessly, he keeps it and claims he thought his actions through carefully. That's heartless, well played, and astonishing all at once. His rivalry with Wallace is well established. At first, it's one thing for him to look down on a humane pest control service that effectively vacuums up rabbits. As the movie goes on, you kind of underestimate him as a threat for a while. As Wallace and Lady Toddington get closer, Victor is not having any of that, because he's just after her for her money. Then we get to that transformation scene that freaked me out as a 3-year-old, and Victor is just as horrified. Once the were-rabbit has hopped away, that grin on Victor's face and the flash of lightning that goes with it makes for one of the greatest show-don't-tell moments for a character's motivation I've ever seen. His face reads, "Oh yeah, I have the perfect chance to kill 2 birds with 1 stone." Or, as another Ray Fiennes villain might say,
"Fate has turned our little misadventure into a great opportunity."
After he slips up and shows his true colors for all to see, he delivers the line that sums him up perfectly. "If I can't have your money, I can still bag your bunny." As the climax unfolds, he gets more deranged and hilariously pathetic when nothing goes right for him. His ultimate defeat, being unknowingly dressed up as a were-rabbit by Gromit and chased by an angry mob, is well deserved. With him, what you see is what you get.
Not prison, not for a cute little
Hamster.
When I made most of this ranking, I didn't think I'd have surprised Pikachu face over Paddington's favorite food, but before I can tell you that story, I have to talk about the story in Bad Guys 1. Professor Marmalade is a fascinating twist villain. He's built up an image as a symbol of pure goodness. In a kid's movie about anthropomorphic animals overcoming negative stereotypes, an innocent-looking character tends to be the villain. With this movie, it's no different. My parents thought the identity of the Crimson Paw was an obvious twist, but I was still surprised by it at 19. Same thing with Marmalade's villainy. I think it has to do with the fact that I was going in with no expectations. I'd be having my mind blown even more by this movie if I were a kid. It's great from that perspective. Marmalade's evil plan is crazy, but deliciously effective. He tricks the bad guys by planting the idea of rehabilitation into their leader's head so he can swipe a meteorite while they take the fall. He harnesses the meteorite's energy to hypnotize domesticated guinea pigs. Why? So they can steal trucks carrying money raised by his own charity. The animators do a really great job making a guy who looks like this so threatening. And that's not even getting to when he shows the bad guys his true colors. His hair is all messy and we get very vicious expressions from him. It's so satisfying to see a guy who sounded so cheerful and buttery throughout the movie tell his henchman Cuddles in that same intonation to kill Wolf and Diane. Ooh, what a gleeful fiend. Then Bad Guys 2 comes in and things get weird for him. He got buffed while in prison for being mistaken for the Crimson Paw. Okay, that's fine. When Kitty exposes Diane as the Crimson Paw, Marmalade is released. Alright, everything's adding up with him so far. Then his car gets attracted by Kitty's gold magnet, and in the mid-credits scene, he transforms said car into a spaceship and goes to his home planet. I have no idea what this dude is about anymore. It's like saying Lex Luthor is a wealthy businessman and then out of nowhere, he turns out to be from Krypton. You're fine with what you already have. I know I said I'd only look at how villains are in their debut films if they made cameos in sequels, but Marmalade gets slightly more than that, so the rule doesn't apply. Even though the sequel bait note we're left on is out of pocket, I think the impression he left us with in the first movie is enough to catapult him far past Prince Charming in Shrek the Third.
Here comes a bear, a very scary bear.
Over the Hedge is one of those movies that needed 2 spots. I feel like its fans tend to revere the antagonist that got less screen time than Gladys. How is that possible? Easy. Vincent and the Verminator are that good. But we're here to talk about the bear. Vincent is a great example of doing a lot with a little. This homicidal bear only has 1 scene during the first hour, not including RJ's nightmares, but you feel the ticking clock surrounding him throughout. RJ accidentally destroyed his food supply while trying to take it, and now he's trying to replace it before Vincent's hibernation is over, or else he'll be on the bear's menu. I gotta give Vincent credit for listening to RJ's point. Eating him immediately would mean he'd have to get the food himself. Otherwise, he can go back to sleeping as he was. It's such a reasonable excuse to let him go, but not off the hook. Nick Nolte was an amazing casting choice as he injects so much gravelly menace into this character. That part where RJ imagines a constellation forming Vincent and he eats the moon like a chip goes so hard. Then RJ brings the food to feed the bear, but RJ chooses to save his friends by crashing into the Verminator's truck using Vincent's food wagon. From then on, that bear really explodes with pent-up aggression. And just when you think you've seen it all when he's dragged away by balloons, he descends by the hedge and pops a balloon with a quill he just pulled from his face. I also love how he, Gladys, and the Verminator are defeated by Hammy's time-freezing caffeinated ploy. Overall, he's a sensational villain in his own right. Vincent even makes 2 cameos in B-Movie. That's how you know you made it big. Pitch Black was initially the element of Rise of the Guardians that kept me from enjoying it all the way through as a child, so he's one of those villains you have a hard time deriving enjoyment from until you're a little older. Every scene with him wastes no time in demonstrating how much he is the stuff of nightmares. You always take him seriously as a threat. I think it's Jude Law's vocal performance that makes his character as effective as he is. I got introduced to him through this movie and character. His voice is just dripping with malice. Pitch plays off Jack Frost incredibly well as a foil. He's bitter and resentful that nobody believes in him. However, he literally exists only to spread fear, so he has to be overshadowed by the Guardians that the Man in the Moon had chosen to do so. It wouldn't satisfy him to just scare a couple kids and call it a night, especially since they can't even see him. He overrides the natural order, sabotages holidays, and makes kids worldwide stop believing in untouchable heroes, all to break free of the neglect he's faced since the Dark Ages. He shows the Guardians the catch of their existence, but if I was Pitch, I would have just killed them all. Yeah, he kills Sandy, but A, that was a means to the end of having no opposition for his nightmares to run amok, and B, the children's faith restores Sandy when he says,
I'd say sweet dreams, but there aren't any left.
That's the sickest murder one-liner in DreamWorks history. You hate Pitch's guts for how he uses Jack's greatest fears to get in his head. That staff-breaking moment is so cruel. Good thing Jack can magically repair it. The movie is so effective at making young audiences think he's winning throughout. When Jamie is the last kid who still believes in the Guardians, it gives them a spark of hope. I also find his defeat satisfying. He stated earlier that his nightmares smell fear, but when the Guardians have him cornered, his nightmares turn on him and viciously drag him away because it's his fear they smell. Can you imagine the studio getting away with this today, even after the nightmare fuel we got in Last Wish? I genuinely can't. While I wouldn't consider Pitch one of my all-time favorite DreamWorks villains, he serves his story well.
I really hate that chick.
Aardman was onto something with their first cinematic villain. Mrs. Tweedy has sparse scenes across Chicken Run, but her shadow lingers over everything. It's not enough for her to intimidate chickens into laying eggs weekly to sell them. She has to get rich off of them since she's sick and tired of making minuscule profits. That bit with the magazine is comedy gold. The entire plot revolves around the transition of her business from selling eggs to selling chicken pies, and the dread that comes with said transition is enhanced by the malice-filled impression she constantly gives off. It effectively establishes why these chickens want to escape the farm, while making this goal feel impossible. Mrs. Tweedy makes for such a great textbook dictator. She's so untouchable that she doesn't realize the chickens are organized. She even thinks her husband is more stupid than he really is for knowing that. You let one chicken stand up to her, then they all might stand up. Those puny little chickens outnumber her 100 to 1. And if they ever find a way out, there goes her way of life. So why is she at 17th place? First off, there are villains I have more fun watching. Second, I wouldn't consider her a business role model because she tries to turn all of the chickens she currently has into pies immediately. She would quickly run out of inventory. I know it's relevant to the stakes, but this factory practice would take its toll. And third, I want to make this clear. The movie where somehow Mrs. Tweedy returned doesn't affect her placement here at all because Dawn of the Nugget isn't a DreamWorks movie. The goal in Chicken Run wouldn't feel so urgent if the villain wasn't so effectively evil, but fortunately, she is.